Hello, everyone in Internetville, and welcome to another episode of the Author Interview Plunge. Today, we have a very special guest with us, David Knight, who's also known on Twitter as Ascension for You. David has conducted mind, body, spirit workshops throughout the UK, led spiritual development and healing circles, and works with an entity called Spirit to help people discover their personal paths of truth. In the more earthly realm, David writes that he's a teetotaler, a vegetarian, loves sunshine, nature, animals, and his wife, and we hope not in that order. David's most recent book, Leave the Body Behind, #7, was released on 21 October 2017. Here's an excerpt from the prologue to Leave the Body Behind, #7. By turning your autopilot to off as often as you can, you connect and retain the power to change the way you live. Though your life will contain many twists and turns, countless opportunities and openings remain, with choices and dreams from the cradle to the grave. So do not look back into the past with regret. You cannot change it. Wise, wise, and welcome words. Please, everyone, please welcome David Knight. Okay, Dave, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm going to leap right into the questions, okay?
Sure, yes.
Very good. David, your last book was Leave the Body Behind, #7, as it was #7. I'd like to know what other books you've written.
Well, about 20 years ago, through my spiritual experiences, the first book that I basically call it inner-dictation, or some people call it channeling. That was called Pathway. I then did a revised edition called Pathway, second edition. Then a sequel to that was Deliverance of Love, Light and Truth. And then through the influence of spirit guides, I then put together 3 further books called I Am I, the Indweller of Your Heart, which was parts 1, 2, and 3. And then previously to Leave the Body Behind, I did a collective edition of all 3 Indweller of the Heart series, which was quite an undertaking, because there was something like about 500 pages, 600 pages. And to condense that into one book, that was quite a challenge. Whereas this latest one is that it's the actual shortest book I've done, but also probably the most time consuming. So over the 20 years, there's been several books, and hopefully there's many more to come.
So you've been writing for 20 years, which is amazing, because you look like you're about 15, 16 years old. So that's impressive.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere, Joe.
Thank you so much. Okay, based on what you've told us, the titles of your books, you're a person who's intimately aware of the spiritual realm and the mind-body-spirit system. Do you have a bucket list, something, your end of life, you need to get this done before you move on to the next place? And if you have a bucket list, what is item #1 on that bucket list?
Crikey, that's quite an intense question, isn't it? Because, I mean, obviously people in life, they have all sorts of things they want to do, such as traveling or going to a different continent or seeing one of the wonders of the world, all those sorts of things. I say it's difficult. I think in real terms, I would like to maintain and experience the inner joy. I know this sounds very blasé, really, but the peace and joy that comes from within, nothing really can surpass it. And everything that you see here through the senses, although they can be quite amazing sights and sounds, they don't, again, this is going to sound a little bit trite, but they don't compare to what you can experience with the connection of pure love.
I think that's a wonderful thing to hear. Another question along the same lines. When a person is in tune with the fullness of life, where do you go to cleanse yourself, to cleanse your soul, your mind, your body? Is there any special place that you have?
Well, I, as a Cancerian, obviously very drawn to water, and that part of a personality is very emotive and intuitive. But I do like to be beside the sea, to be honest. But again, you know, when you're withdrawing within yourself, finding that inner peace, you know, you can be anywhere that you want to be, not just necessarily on this physical plane, but you could be anywhere within the universe.
Very good. What is required to follow what you teach? You teach these classes all over the UK. You've led workshops. What is required to become involved with what you do and to learn it, even at a beginning level?
Another good question. I would think, Joe, and all those who are listening, is to have an open mind, but more so being open-hearted, because some people think they're disconnected, but they are entwined. The mind, the heart, the soul is one. They are separate in essence, but universally, everything is combined. You know, we're all one. You know, we can't separate those things. It's impossible.
Does being an author make you isolated? You have all this connectedness. Does being an author make you isolated?
I would say, you know, any particular creative aspect, whether that's writing, painting, any creative field, you can be isolated, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And you know, when people are linking with each other, then ideas can be expressed, shared, things grow in terms of this creative and inspiration aspect of our personalities. But I think in the past I have been isolated. I think very much so. You know, withdrawing in my own little world to carry on and trying to express myself through the written word. And I think through these podcasts, I think it's now time to expand my horizons, because I have been withdrawing too much, I think.
Well, I think that's part of being an author in many ways. You have to, you know, pull in so you can begin producing.
Sure.
Who did you learn from? You've been doing this. You've been writing these books for 20 years. I don't know. Help me understand. Did you start writing these books and that's what led you into this, or did you have teachers or a teacher or a revelatory moment? What did you learn? How did you learn this stuff?
Well, ever since I was a young lad, I was about 6 or 7, and I remember going to the coast, and there was this sort of fortune teller, tarot reader lady in this little hut, and my parents dragged me. They said, "Oh, you're not interested in that sort of thing." And ever since then, you know, thoughts in my mind. I remember actually going in a car once, looking out the window, thinking, "Why am I here? What purpose do I have?" And it wasn't until I was about 21 where I actually had a meeting with a medium, and she was telling me things about myself that I knew that no one else knew. And at that point, that sort of ignited the spark within me to try to understand what actually was happening in terms of, you know, how can someone know innermost secrets? And from that point, I then started joining development circles, meditation circles, and it was through those that I started to receive little snippets of information within my mind, and I started writing them down. And it was that process which after about 3 or 4 months, I realized that a book was being collated, and that was actually my journey right from when I was younger.
Fascinating. So you are getting these inspirations, I guess I could call them. Would that be accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
That leads to me to ask, is this because you mentioned spirit. So were these inspirations from this entity you call spirit, or can you help everyone listening and watching to understand that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, everybody's working, whether they believe or know it or not, everyone's working on different levels of energy. And someone who's just starting to investigate the reasons, you know, why they're here on this earth plane or what purpose they have, you know, that doesn't make them any lesser a person or a soul, and it doesn't make me any greater a soul or more knowledgeable than anyone else. But you know, those processes of learning, you know, there's an expression that someone taught me many, many years ago. You can only learn to the level that you have reached. You know, you can't, it'd be like giving a baby, you know, a university lecture to read and understand and discuss. It just can't happen. So we're all sort of growing at different levels and different paces, and spirit, God, the source of love and light, the universal energy, whatever terminology you decide or one places upon that, that energy, that information will only come through to the level that the individual can understand. And I suppose the simplest way of putting it is if you picked up a book, you know, Professor Hawkins or something, you might look at that and think, what on earth is that? You know, you just cannot understand it. But if you went back to that same text in 3 months, 6 months time, something in there may make sense. So we're all on this learning curve, and I say no one's better or worse than anyone else. It's just that you know, you're given information at the correct moment in time to enhance and enable you to live and grow as a person and also as a spiritual being of light.
Very good. With all that you've learned and all this light and love that you now carry inside you, and you continue to grow and replenish, if you could change one thing in the world to make it a better place, what would it be?
Oh, Joe, you know, if we could wave a magic wand
Yeah.
to rid this planet of anger and hate, and murder and killing and all those sorts of things, there's only one way forward for humanity, really, and that is love. You know, and even a madman loves someone or something, and love is the be all and end all. There's another expression, is love all, serve all. And if we can all try to do that, this world would gradually lift, and an energy of negativity and darkness would evaporate in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But karma has a major role to play, personal karma, global karma. And, you know, what I do know is that God does not make mistakes. It's human beings in their so-called wisdom try to change things, and they're not always for the better. So I think love would be the thing, Joe.
Very good. What do you feel is the key to success?
Well, you have to have belief. You know, the most crucial thing, there's no end of so-called gurus out there. I mean, you look, there's things like The Secret, manifestations, or, you know, power of thought can change the world in combination with love. You know, if you change the way that you think, and it's basically just trying to train the mind. When the mind becomes, I call it like the monkey mind, because like a monkey is sort of all over the place and it will flitter from here to there. If you can try to train the mind into a correct way of living, the thoughts that you generate, it's like each thought goes out into the ether, either positive or negative. So if you believe and you can imagine in your mind success in whatever field you're in, whatever creative element that your passion or your niche, it will come true. 100% it will come true. The thing that we as human beings have a difficulty in grasping is the timing of such things, because human nature is we want something yesterday, but there is a purpose and a passage of getting somewhere from A to B, and that in that path and in that road that we travel, if we believe in ourselves and have faith in ourselves and have the confidence in ourselves, there is no reason whatsoever that someone cannot achieve their goals and their dreams.
Let's build on that idea of achieving goals and dreams. You've always had a sensitivity, I guess, based on what you said. You've always had a sensitivity to the spiritual realm or the mind, body, spirit realm. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you, if I understood what you said correctly, you made the decision to start your personal journey in your early 20s.
Yes.
You saw this medium, I think it was, or fortune teller. So you've been on this path, and I'm going to believe you're going to continue on this path. What would you like your legacy to be?
Well, it's strange that you asked that, because someone I know also asked me a similar thing quite recently. And, anybody in any walk of life, I say about we have this purpose of living. I would hate to, whatever day that I'm called to cross over into light, whenever that is, to have not at least left my mark somewhere. What I do is this written word I collate into books, so that in theory they're eternal, and someone will always, before I pass away, whenever that may be, all my books will become totally free. The reason why they are of a minimal cost at the moment is just to help pay towards the future production of books. Utopia would be that if I had enough income, would be to maintain the books and this process, and to donate most of it to charity. Likewise, like I said, dreams will come true, hopefully. My fingers are crossed in that respect. I'm not there yet. But yeah, my legacy is my books. And a musician would sing a song, create an album, and that's there for future generations. And if someone draws or paints a picture, it's there to be, or a statue, sculptor, they're there. That's their legacy. And I think anyone in the process of life, if they're not in a creative field, doesn't mean they can't leave a legacy, because every single person that you come across, you're able to leave a piece of yourself, with a smile, with a wave, someone in the street, a kind gesture. They're all elements of a soul's legacy that you are leaving imprinted upon this earth and in other people's hearts. So yes, these are physical aspects of these books are physical legacy, but from your heart, you don't need physical things. You can touch people's lives in so many ways. It's untrue. We just have to do it. We have to bring joy into other people's lives. Helping someone across the road. A smile could be the only time that someone gets any contact from someone else, but that smile could lift them.
Excellent. Here's another question along these same lines. people, I know in my life, I've met people that when they encounter someone practicing a mind, body, spirit discipline, they automatically assume that this person lives on a mountaintop and, they're aloof and, that's what they need to do. And I don't think that's the case. I believe you live somewhere north of London, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Let me give you an example. In The Razor's Edge, Somerset Maugham's great novel, The Razor's Edge, there's a line: being spiritual in the world is like walking on a razor's edge. People who are in these disciplines, such as yourself, you still deal with real world challenges. And it's how people deal with these challenges that makes the difference. So let's ask, you in your life, you have emotions, of course. You mentioned you love your wife, you love nature. Yeah. And if someone is capable of love, they're also capable of anger and hate. So that's the other side. So how do you help people? What do you tell people to deal with the negativity that they experience? Not negativity directed towards them, that's something else. But when they feel negativity, what are your suggestions? And along those lines, what's your biggest pet peeve, aside from people asking you long questions?
Well, do you know what? One thing that really grates on me is when I'm driving, I come up to a roundabout and someone's paused there and they're waiting for a car coming from the right, or in your case, the left, and there's nothing coming, and you're stuck behind them, especially if you're in a hurry. But,
Yes.
Joking aside, Joe and all listeners, I am not whiter than white. If anyone says they're perfect, I would have to say, are you really? Because if you were perfect, you wouldn't be here on this earth plane to learn something. So, I would suggest to people is don't be too deflated when you're criticized, and don't be too elated when you're praised. It's finding balance. Balance in your life is probably another key to, what do they call it? Equanimity. But, if you can't, I mean, my parents taught me an age-old thing, keep quiet, count to 10. But sometimes an individual can become a catalyst to put someone, I don't mean to put someone in their rightful place, but someone can be used as a catalyst to bring an issue or something to someone else's attention. Spiritually, and spirit will use people in whatever way or form is right for that person's development or another person's development. We're not just here for us. Sometimes people say, yeah, I'm here for myself, but also you are here for others. We are here to grow, but we're here for others. One of the main things is to, I say, meditation is a popular thing around the world in all different forms. But if you can try to find that inner peace within yourself, your whole life almost changes, because you become more content, more alive, more energetic. There are so many positive things to meditation, and this leave the body behind is saying to people the ultimate benefit is to get to know who and what you truly are, which is a spark of the divine. You're a flame of divinity. You're a soul. And this self-help book, there are many out there, and I'm like a fish in the ocean swimming against all these other highly popular and famous people and authors, and each have a message to tell. And I think truth is in not only the eye of the beholder, but it's in the heart of the beholder. So if something resonates with that person, a book or a picture or a film, a poem, if that resonates, then it's true for that person and that person alone.
Wonderful. We're going to shift tactics again. If you could have lunch with anyone from history, who would it be and why?
Well, coming from a Christian background, my first thought would be to be participants in that Last Supper with Jesus. And I have been so graced and so humbled to have experienced the Lord's presence within me and in meditative journeys. And people do say, well, when you're on that energy, that's like being in a physical, having that physical contact. But if I was transported back a couple of thousand years, that would be utopia. That would be amazing to be in that physical presence, not only of Jesus, but the disciples. Can I just mention someone else? And this is going to sound very, very strange to a lot of people. I would like to have a meeting with Hitler.
Could you explain that?
Well, apparently he was a very religious person, and he actually was saying to his followers at the time that he was getting visions from God of what he had to do. But I would like to have a meeting with him, tell him a little piece of what I know now, and say, look, are you 100% sure of what you're doing and the reasons why? Whether that would influence him in any way, shape, or form, I've got no idea, of course. But, it's just to try to bring some light or extra light into someone's life in all those ways we just spoke about a minute ago. Who knows what could have happened. But, it's just something that I think those two people from the past would have a massive effect on me.
Most definitely. Back to writing for a second. Do you write more by logic or intuition, or a combination of the two?
I would say the majority of it is intuitive. And I usually get the inspiration. It could be a soft piece of music, or I could be gazing over a vista, a beautiful sunrise or a sunset, and that inspires me. And when I'm in a calming atmosphere, such as with my pen and paper, spiritual words seem to flow through for me to write down. And they could be just a sentence or two, or sometimes a few pages. And I read back and it's almost like, did I write that? It's very bizarre, very bizarre. But it's not a phenomenon that's natural just to me. I mean, there's thousands of people around the world that receive guided messages and inspiration. I mean, some of the famous people, you have Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God series. There's Jack Armstrong. There's Blossom Goodchild, who receives information from White Cloud and different spirit guides. So I'm not the first, and I'm certainly not the last. But the information that we each receive is unique to ourselves. I know there's some people out there that actually receive information in a foreign language, even though they can't even speak it. Or they converse and talk in a foreign language, which they're not even familiar with. So, you have to say, where does that come from if they can't even speak it? So I do find it absolutely fascinating. And I'm hoping that the conversations and the discussion we're having, it's tea time our time in the UK, but I think it's perhaps early in the morning for yourselves. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, that inspiration can always flow.
Indeed. You teach all over the UK. You've got a number of books out. What is something memorable you've heard from readers or fans?
Well, it's humbling for any single book to be purchased or to be read. An absolute privilege to be able to share the information that has been given to me. But I remember back in the late 90s, I received a number of letters with that first book called Pathway. And there was a chap, he was a publican down in Devon, in the UK. And he was going through a marital breakup and had problems with his work. And he wrote to me and he said, David, I was contemplating suicide. And since I've come across your book, my life has changed. And, you know, what better inspiration can I find to keep going? It was just so humbling, and it brought me to tears, really, that this chap was down on his knees and he found some text within the book to bring him up.
Wonderful. Quite the blessing. If you could have been the author of any book ever written, which book would you choose?
Well, perhaps some people would think it would be some sort of esoteric works or some sort of spiritual work, but I am a fan of Tolkien, I'm afraid, and his creativity is just amazing. His descriptive nature of text, and of course the films that were spawned from that, his legacy will be eternal, won't it? I'm a great fan of the films and the books. So yeah, I would say Tolkien for me.
Very good. What is your current project or your next book? What is that going to be about?
Well, this may sound a bit of a cheat, but across the previous several books, I'm going to condense small aspects of text into lift-me-ups. And this book is going to be called A Pocket Full of God, whereby you can fit this book into your shirt pocket, your jacket pocket, your back jean pocket, and within it there will be 2 or 3 line sentences of inspiration, motivation, uplifting, and colorful text. To, you know, it could be someone's having a bad day, they'll just turn to a certain page of that book and they'll read what they are meant to hear on that particular day. So that's something that I'm just about to start, or probably early next year.
Okay, very good. We look forward to it. And I want to thank you for your time today. A very, very wonderful and informative conversation. I appreciate your taking this time with us very much. Here's my last question for you, sir. What question do you wish that someone would ask about you or your book, but nobody has?
Good Lord. Well, people do ask me, you know, where the inspiration comes from. I suppose it links in with something that you mentioned earlier on, is, you know, where does this writing take place? And where does the inspiration take place? And I would say, you know, you do not have to go to a far off country. You do not have to travel anywhere in the world. You do not have to go to find the secret hidden away in an enclave, in a cave somewhere. The secret to finding that love is turning within your own heart. And so the question, if someone says exactly where is this inspiration, and I would say it's in here, it's inside yourself, it's in there waiting to burst out. You just have to reach in and lift it up. Excellent.
Very, very profound. Mr. David Knight, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I look forward to your next book, having it in my pocket at some point in time.
Oh, it's been lovely to speak to you, Joe, and the audience and the listeners. I'm very humbled to be able to share part of my life story. And, you know, if anyone found the inspiration through these words, then that's fantastic. It's made my day.
Very good. Take care, sir.